back with Mike, owner of Aviation Consultant Corp. Mike, last time we talked about general aviation. This time I'd like to talk a little bit more about getting some examples of what it would cost.
Okay. Well, again, we talked in general terms, and aviation runs the gamut on cost. When you're looking at the smallest general aviation to the largest general aviation aircraft, it can be quite significant. So what you need to do is start with basically the classes that you're looking at, and then like anything else, there's a small, a medium, and a large. And within each one of those subcategories, you can have various aircraft. So when you're looking at, let's take up for instance, we'll start at the high end. When you have large aircraft, intercontinental, heavy jets, you're looking again, a lot of variables there, but you have the two factors that you have to look at when buying or acquiring the aircraft. Let's put it that way. After you've done your travel analysis and you're seeing where you're coming from and going to, you have an acquisition cost, and then you have the operating cost. So on the very large, Gulfstreams tend to be the pinnacle of large business aircraft, and unfortunately, there's a lot of variables go into it. But in general, probably you're starting at around 10 million, and they would go higher from there, depending on whether it's used or new. But you're starting at about 10 million up to even 40 and 50 million, depending on the jet, realistically. And then you're looking at the operating cost. Now, how much you're flying it impacts it, but now you have an annual budget that you're probably starting at the very lowest end at $1.5 million a year. Probably closer to 2 to 2.5, and those are all numbers basically as a full ownership and about 400 hours a year. And then, so if you're using it more or less, all of these numbers go up and down depending upon that. And then you move into the mediums, and there's a couple different classes in mediums, but your range is not so far, your acquisition cost is not so far, you're carrying all the capabilities step down a bit, and then so there your acquisition cost on the low end, whether you're new or used again, but you're really looking at about $5 million at the low end, and upwards of 20 million for some of the brand new equipment that's out there. Then again, you have your operating costs, but they now drop down again. You're probably looking at, in the $1 million a year to run, and upwards again, based upon the number of hours and how you operate the aircraft. And then you're into the small, which is typically anything up to the 5 million. And your operating's a couple $100,000, up to $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year to operate it. So you have a wide range, which is why you really need to look at that travel analysis and see what you're doing, because that will be the determining factor of what aircraft is going to fit your needs and provide you with the most bang for your buck, as you put it, and not over or under buy an aircraft.
Now, is that something Aviation Consultant Corp can do, a travel analysis? Please help them do this?
Absolutely. That's what we do. That's the first step. If you remember, there's the 4 steps we go through. You have your travel analysis, which determines where you're traveling, how often, and then you do the aircraft feasibility, which would match the aircraft to the travel analysis, so that you making sure that you have enough aircraft, not too much, not too little. The acquisition, going out and buying the airplane, and then they need it. The management are helping them set up what it takes to take care of the aircraft. So the cost of all of that all rolls back to really how much they're using it, and that is, there's a couple different ways you can go about breaking down that cost. That means for some, they want to have total control, so they buy the equipment themselves, they manage and operate it themselves. Others don't want the hassles. They go to either a fractional program or a management company, and sometimes it's both involved there. So it's at the lower end. I'm sorry. If you didn't want to have to deal with any of that, there's always charter, which is what they call Part 135 operations. If you're in New York City, you want to go across the town, you call a cab. Charter is much the same way. You pay a flat fee, and for the one-time use of the airplane, and you go from there. Now, there's a number of corporations that do that. There's a number that even own and have what they call supplemental lift. They either buy additional shares of fractional and or charter to fill in the needs for what they do.
Now we talk about, $10 million. Now, will this work for smaller companies, that have 20, 30 employees or less, but have a sales force who want the convenience of traveling without, going to the airports, waiting in line? Would that work for them? They may not have $10 million to spend on an aircraft.
Oh, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, and it's kind of there's a misconception in the general public because there's not a full understanding of the span of general aviation. It starts with the smallest single-engine Cessna that you find at your local airport. Now, we're in New Hampshire, pardon me, and we have, just local to us here, we have the Nashua Airport, we have the Manchester Airport, and then a number of other satellite airports. Portsmouth is a little bit further away for us, but there's Lawrence for down on the Mass line, also Bedford, that's down there. So there's at least a dozen smaller airports around that have the smaller general aviation aircraft. Now, again, depending upon what the corporation's travel pattern and looks like, you can have a Cessna 172, and you're talking at the much lower end, a couple $100,000 for the brand new ones, and then maybe $50,000, $60,000 to $70,000 a year to operate it, depending on the number of hours. Now, there's limitations you have to worry about as far as the carrying capabilities, the actual limitations of the aircraft themselves. They don't have some of the more sophisticated systems that you would find on a large jet. Obviously, there's not going to be a bathroom on some of these airplanes. There's not going to be internet connectivity that you get on the very largest and most sophisticated airplanes. But what you are getting,
but you don't have that in your vehicles or taxi cabs either. They don't have bathrooms. But you get the traffic.
That's absolutely right. Now, again, in New Hampshire here, we have a couple corporations I've talked with that get down into, say, the New York area or the Pennsylvania and the Jersey, along the eastern seaboard, and maybe stretching out in the mid-Atlantic area, that really what they want to be able to do is get to their client excuse me, and get back without having to use the airlines. They certainly can use the airlines, but you would spend just as much time traveling via the airlines sometimes as they would driving. So, but a smaller airplane, and you can do by the way, you can do the same thing in these smaller airplanes. You can get fractional programs, you can get managed programs, and you can get charter programs for the smaller aircraft, where you're talking $300, $600, $800 an hour versus $1,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 an hour for the bigger, heavier jets. But what it does is it allows them to get that business done. They don't have the amenities, I guess is the best way to put it, that you would get on the biggest and heaviest equipment, but they don't. It comes without having the expense either. They do gain the utility of using aviation. They get out, they get the business done, they get back. They talk to their clients, their customers, they solve problems, they have engineers that they're able to get to the field and get back. They do all of the same things that the largest end do, but they just do it on a smaller scale. That enables them to then grow and become the bigger companies, to step up to the equipment. But most companies, I think if you investigate it, could track their roots back to using the smaller airplanes. Walmart is the biggest example that's out there. A lot of people talk about that. Sam Walton used to fly around in a piston twin when he first started out, and he was scouting locations or getting his business done. Walmart runs a very large flight operation now. Obviously, they're a big company, but the point of the matter is there is a place for the smaller airplane, depending upon the company's goals and what really they'd like to achieve.